Hello and welcome to my new series. In this series, what I want to do is live blog, or screencast, I guess, a few things that I want to do to my server. Part of this is just because I'm doing them anyway, and another part of it is because I've become a little bit obsessed with YouTube, ha 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 ha, and another part of it is because I figured people can live blog video games, why not live blog server administration? I figured nobody will look at it and I'll forget about it, but it is interesting, and if nothing else, I might just use it as a way to document what I'm doing. So without further ado, I'm gonna switch over to some screencasts where I talk about the server itself and connecting to it, and then I want to talk about some of the stuff that I want to do. Hello and welcome to my first screen recording. Right now, I'm just setting up the environment to make sure that hopefully, as I'm working on a screencast about installing Hyper-V, and then later another screencast about installing SharePoint Server, nothing will go wrong. I am using my Mac, as you'll notice, and I may or may not have pulled up some information to cheat. To do this because of cheap built-in screen recording software. Also, I don't have any video editing software on Windows, so that's what's going on there. The first thing I'm going to do is get connected to a couple systems. The first is tect, and it's going to be a little bit misleading because tect is actually the name now of a virtual machine, and as I've just remembered, I need to make a new system, 192.168.1019, whose DNS might or might not have propagated internally. I've renamed the physical hardware of tect to Sodor. And I'm just going to put in my credentials here. We're going to do this native. It's going to be full screen. Hopefully this runs well. My Mac is on wireless right now. We'll go ahead and close that to save it. I don't know why. Oh. I always get those two reversed. Start. And now we'll just hit continue, and what should happen when we get connected is that it's gonna show that the system's working on a benchmark. Haha! Also, this one weird quirk with remote desktop, we have to size it down and then bring it back up. System's working on a benchmark right now. I'm not quite ready to actually do the enablement of Hyper-V, and I've been wanting to run this benchmark, so we'll just let it do that thing. While we're waiting though, system has 16 gigs of RAM, a 2.4 gigahertz quad-core processor of the old Westmere generation. It looks like we're seeing a little tiny bit of hyperthreading, sorry, not hyperthreading, turbo boost. In here it does have hyperthreading, and we can see I've had it on almost a day in this configuration. I've had the system since 2011. It's just that this is the first time it's running Windows Server 2012 R2. This PC properties. Whoops. Server 2012 R2. It's in a work group right now. I'm testing things out. The virtual machine that I'm going to create will be on a domain, the StenoWeb domain, and when I eventually get this machine upgraded a little bit, at least 32 gigs of RAM, potentially a new hard disk because one of mine might be failing, we'll get this on the domain and I'll use a license that I've got. In the meantime, build 9600 is going to last another 179 days. That's more than enough time for me to test some stuff out. And let's go back here to desktop 1 and stop recording this video. Okay, so back over to Sodor. One of the things I wanted to talk about super quickly is something that I installed yesterday, and this is, other than, basic settings, literally the only thing I've done to the server so far. I'm still running that benchmark in the background, so I don't really know what this will look like, but here's our opening page, which is a certificate error. Sort of sad that that's still happening, but whatever. We just hit continue, and it logs us in to Dell Open Managed Server Administrator. One of the notes about this certificate error is that I'm running the RTM release of Windows Server 2012 R2. It could very well be that in the intervening 3 years, new certificates have been released through Windows updates, and that's why I don't see the correct things. Reminding you that I'm still on a Mac. Here we go. So, whoops, my server's old and I need to take some care of it. One of the things I just wanted to mention super quickly is that I used to have my disks set up in a different way because I was running Windows Small Business Server 2011, and now what I'm doing is I'm running a smaller operating system install, and as you know, I plan on putting Hyper-V on it. With Hyper-V, what I've gone ahead and done is changed the whole 8 disks, there's 8 2 TB disks, into a single RAID 6 group, and about 400 gigabytes of data is going to be the tect boot volume. And we can see here's the status of all 8 disks. Here's this one disk that's rebuilding. And the next 11 terabytes or so, let's see, perk6i is tech data. And, oh, I see, virtual disks. Here in tech data, we're going to see basically the same disk because it's the next, 11 or so terabytes on the same physical group, basically. Here, we can expand out the status of any given disk, such as this one. It looks like in bay number 6. Rebuilding 25% complete. It's been doing this. I suspect really soon here I'm going to be just replacing this one disk. And in fact, I might be replacing a few of them because what's happened is over time I've got 3 Hitachi disks and 5 Seagate disks. So as budget permits, I might just replace the Hitachi disks with more Seagates, or the Seagates with more Hitachis. I haven't decided, but I do have a spare Seagate that I bought a few years ago, so this will just happen in the next few days. Okay, welcome back. In the interest of saving time, I've gone ahead and canceled out of that benchmark. I probably ruined it by opening OMSA anyway. Let's go ahead and review the fact that we're using almost nothing on this beefy server. Old but beefy. And then head over to Server Manager. Here, let's see. Gosh darn if I can't remember how to, oh, here we go, add roles and features. How to do the things in this thing. In here, before you begin, this wizard helps you do the stuff. Make sure you've got a password and that it's a good one. We do, and it's acceptable. And make sure that you've got a static IP address, which is okay advice, I guess, depending on how you're running your network. And that you have Windows updates. We don't have Windows Update installed. I'm not worried about that for this particular machine quite yet, because I'm probably going to end up redoing this installation of Windows before too long with all the information that I learn, and depending on whether or not I can actually license this. So what I'm just going to do is head back into this Manage menu, which might open. Did I mention that I was on Wi-Fi? Add, remove. Have I got this open twice now? Wait. Okay. Add roles and features. Next, we're gonna do role-based, and we're gonna select this particular server from this group. This is kind of neat. If you have more than one server, there's essentially proto SECM in here. You could hypothetically do some management of your other servers. In the long run, what this is going to mean is that some of the management tasks on all of my virtual servers I'm going to be able to do from the interface on the main server. This tool you can also run on desktop computers, so I have a laptop with what's called RSAT, the Remote Server Administration tools, on it, and that laptop will be able to manage the Hyper-V role as well as other things. We're just gonna go right to it and say we're adding Hyper-V, and we're gonna add these features. We need to hit next now, and it looks like it has automatically selected a few things. I don't know if these were already installed or what. We could hypothetically, add some of this stuff. It looks like RSAT is either already installed or is going to be installed. We're just gonna go ahead and hit next again. Those were the features. So Hyper-V, it's going to ask us a few things, and by running those workloads on virtual machines, it's neat stuff. You can use virtual machines to consolidate multiple workloads on one physical server. Nice if you're running a bunch of old Pentium 4s and you want to just buy one new server. You can increase availability by using shared storage and automatically failing virtual machines over to different hardware. I'm doing a really simple setup. It's going to be one virtual machine. We're gonna, let's see, we're gonna just install the Hyper-V role here. I only have one of my two Ethernet adapters connected right now. One virtual switch will be created for each network adapter you select. We recommend that you create at least one virtual switch now to provide virtual machines with connectivity to a physical network. You can add, remove, and modify your virtual switches later by using the Virtual Switch Manager. It occurs to me that this is going to mess with networking. I'm connected to the system by a network. We'll just do it. We don't want to do this. This is failover, essentially. Users of VMware ESX have been doing this for a very long time, Citrix Zen Server as well. I only have one big server, and my other Hyper-V system is actually a single desktop running bare metal Hyper-V with slow storage. So yeah, and then there's other like cluster configuration later. We'll just hit next, and I want to change the location of the virtual hard disks to HV disks D. Let's see. This is the virtual hard disk files. Yep. Disks. Okay, good. Browse this PC. Machines. And we'll go ahead and hit install. So this is going to take a few moments. While we do that, I'm going to pop into Internet Explorer. We're going to take a quick look at how terrible my security settings are. In here, I just want to go to fd.stenoweb.net and pick out a neat name for our new virtual machine. Let's see, okay. Tect has a list of names. Marin is being used. It would be appropriate because it is in fact SharePoint testing. Server Marin was the name of the first SharePoint testing server I had. Let's go ahead and use Wellsworth. That's a good name. And I've got some notes that I just need to get open on my other computer here for some IP settings. We're going to be testing a few different things with this. One note, the things that we're going to be testing are my static IP addresses that I have from my telephone company, where I also buy my internet. The neat thing about that is that I have 5 individual public static IP addresses. The idea was to put email, SharePoint, and I don't know what else yet, on their own individual IP addresses, so that I don't have to worry about basically routing a whole bunch of different HTTP sites on 80 and 443 through one gateway IP address. And I still have a gateway IP address for other things that come up. It'll probably end up being a Linux shell box. Suddery was looks like that was what the intent there was. I think I actually have that installed on Narvik, which is my desktop. Also pretty beefy, running client hyperv, where Debian runs merely okay, which has been one of the challenges of that particular setup. I might need to put VMware Workstation on that computer. We're pretty much still waiting on this to happen. I'm looking at my information on this other page. I'm just gonna let's see, and thing 209 210 Oh, here we go. Okay, I was not looking at this computer. So it transpires that we must restart the server to finish the installation. So if we hit close here, what it should do is say something about, yes, restart is pending on Sodor. You must restart the destination server to finish the installation. So what I'm just going to do is close out of everything we've got open here. Can I close this? Come back to the start screen. Oh, let's see, Control Alt Insert, Control Alt End. There we go. You just hit Control Alt Delete on a Mac because that doesn't do anything else on the Mac. And we're going to hit Restart here. And we're just going to say that this is a operating system reconfiguration. We've planned to do this. This server's not in production yet, so this doesn't matter for too much. Continue. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. And when we are back, the system will be ready to install Windows in a virtual machine. Welcome back. We are just now logging into Sodor again. We've got to do this little thing. It has rebooted. Hyper-V is installed, I think. And the thing that we'll need, it occurs to me, is some installation media for Windows. So real quick, we decided on the name, was it Haltroff? Oh gosh, I didn't write this down. Well, I go get that though. Let's see, because the account is currently disabled. Oh, I know why that happens. I'm logged in as .back/administrator, which is disabled by default in server 2011. So let me just tect.stenemo.local SW. Different credentials. I just need to get connected, and that will be there. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So we've got Hyper-V now, and some stuff has happened on the server. This stuff, I actually don't know what all of this means. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that that's just stuff that like I'm going to start eventually. So Hyper-V, we'll go ahead and yeah, it's like you don't have some of your stuff yet, and I'm like, that's okay. None of the management is actually in here, as far as I know. Which is fine. What we need to do is go into administrative tools. While we're waiting for that to load, I'm going to bring up tect. Oh, it was Wellsworth we decided on. Administrative tools is coming along. I wonder if that disk is really holding this back, or if this is just a matter of like, calm down, I'm doing things. Hyper-V, anyway, is in here. Sodor. Performance. Not too terribly much is happening. This doesn't show us the disk like Windows Client does, or maybe that was added in Windows 10. We're gonna wait. Did you get mapped as A? Oh, that is not what I meant to do. Oh well. Virtual machines. Let's go to Switch Manager first and just make sure we've got our virtual switch set up. It looks good. Open Network and Sharing Center. I just want to show you what happened. In here, if we go to adapter settings, you can see that we've got our physical Ethernet card. It's enabled, and now we have vEthernet, and vEthernet is actually where we're going to have our IP address on the machine, which is good. We can go ahead and close out of that, close out of that, close out of this. We really don't need to look at the Ethernet anymore. We're going to make a new virtual machine. We're going to go to next, and we're going to call this Wellsworth. We're going to just go with that name because this is just a test server anyway, and I'm going to probably reuse this name. Yeah, generation 2. I want 8192 megabytes of RAM for right now. I was told that SharePoint should install in 8 gigs, and that leaves us some room to maybe spin up another virtual machine. In my experience, SharePoint 2013 doesn't do too terribly much at all unless you give it a whole heck of a lot of RAM. We're going to make this a pretty even number, 300 gigs. I like 3 even numbers. I think we can resize these later. I'll try that at some point. Next, okay. We're going to go back to my mapped A drive and we're going to look for 9600 WinBlue RTM. This is my server hypercore. I love the naming on this stuff. Basically an ISO of Windows 8. This is going to take a while. I should have thought to do this first. While we're doing that though, I just want to come on. Put Hyper-V in a place where I can get to it more easily. Those disks are blinking so much. I'm going to need to monitor the disk on this. Let's pin some things to start. Oh, come back. Virtual machine connection. I don't know if this is already on start. Oh, here we go, Hyper-V Manager. Oh, I see. Administrative tools is first, and that's why I didn't see it. Pin to start. I'm going to open a resource monitor. While we're doing this, I'm going to go over here and we're just going to create a new folder for ISOs. Actually, I'm going to create it on C because there's no good reason not to. ISO. Just super stupid. I just want to have a place for my installers, which operating system installers. When I get the virtual machine created, what I'm going to do is join it to the StenoWeb domain and patch it a lot. I'll show you a little bit of that. And then once it's patched, I will connect directly to that file share without having to enter domain credentials. It's going to be super nifty, so that we can get the installer for SharePoint, which I have on there. Bootable image file. Stop clicking, Corey. This is going to take a moment. I'm going to have to remap that because I don't like that being on A. And we're just going to dump this into a folder. Organization. We love it. This is taking longer than I wanted it to. In the meantime, I just want to look at the disk activity and see what's going on here. I've never had the disks in this arrangement. Previously I had a 2 terabyte RAID 1 that I was booting from and a 5 terabyte RAID 5 that my data was on. This time I've got one big RAID 6 with 2 volumes on it, so the operating system and all the virtual operating systems are going to be dipping into the same pool. This could be problematic, and a test like this is a good time to find out. It's basically saying it's always active. There's a queue of stuff on the C disk. I need to get better at this. Something's reading from the disk at crazy. Is this total number of writes, or is that speed at its bytes per second? That's like 1,000,000 bytes per second, so that's not too crazy. Oh, I see. It's copying this file. I wonder if what's happened is it's not actually finished copying over the network. Or if what we're seeing is the result of a bad disk in the group, which will impact performance. Probably. It might have been opportune that I stopped using it when I did. This is kind of neat. You can sort by processes. Explorer's doing a few things. That's really a system process, even though I did it with Explorer. I don't know why. Performance monitor is looking at a lot of different things, which is really interesting because it shouldn't be. I don't know. Local network server, service host. Come on, UB store. I have to look at that. This I did not expect to take as long as it is. While we're waiting, back on 2012-09-19, ISO 8601 date formatting, woo! I bought a spare disk. I'm just going to open that up now and kind of get some of the stuff out of the way. Probably a little later on, perhaps even while this is installing the operating system or doing some patches, I can get this installed. One of the nice things about RAID 6 is that you can do your let's see, next, Ellsworth Gen 2, finish, do your installations of your operating systems. No, you can leave your machine running while you're replacing disks, and we'll be able to go into OMSA and actually see, like, you removed the disk, you put a new disk back in, and I think there's a command in there like replace disk. We'll take a look at that before we actually pop the old disk out. Replacing the disks is going to be a little bit of a time-intensive process just because I only have so many caddies, and so I need to take the old disk out, put a new disk in, and then once we've got the new disk in, what was I going to say? Oh, it'll resynchronize, which itself will take a long time, and that's one of the things that's happening right now, is the disk is pretty continuously resynchronizing. Here's, just as a review, the tect page, and one of the things I used to have on here, but I guess I don't, so I need to go to the old wiki, which is going to go away soon. Please don't put anything here. Tect, go, a list of disks. Here's when I bought them. These disks are pretty old. Most of my stuff, my computing equipment, is from about 2011, except for my Surface, which is newer, and my main laptop, quote unquote, which is actually much older. This disk outside of tect is the one from September, it says, even though I actually bought it in August, it looks like. Weird. Wait. 9, that is September. I can't read. I don't know how dates work. So that's exciting. While we're waiting for that, again, here's the real tect. I've got an RSAT controller. Here's my WSS folder, which I look at every once in a while. I'm going to be doing some stuff with this every once in a while. This is a virtual machine on another computer I have called Finmark, and this is what I'm going to look at next week or later. Got some maintenance to do on that. Memory. Ooh, this is a really neat view of the memory. Contains cache data and code that is not actively in use. So that's things like disk caches, probably. Tect kind of has a few problems right now. If you'll recall, we looked at the failing disk earlier, and it actually also has a failing DIMM, which we can see in Server Administrator. It's super fun as part of upgrading it for this whole process of, oh, there we go. Virtualizing all the tasks that are currently running together on old tect, the virtual machine. We're actually going to be upgrading the RAM to at least 32 gigabytes to start. And once the RAM is upgraded, we're going to just start building out virtual machines for tasks and testing things and splitting everything out so that it's a little bit more easily maintained. One of the problems with Small Business Server 2011 Standard Edition, which is what tect has, what this physical hardware used to run, is that everything's integrated, which is not a configuration Microsoft recommends. Just for funsies. I swear, yeah, last night this said failing dim. Well then. While we're in here though, let's take a look at the PERC6i. Connector 1 is where the bad disk is. Come on. Enclosure, physical disks, and one of the things we're supposed to be able to do is maybe this just handles it automatically. You used to be able to basically tell it kick out this disk and it would do that, and then you would have to come back in here and tell it to rebuild onto the new disk that you put in. Okay, so Wellsworth is built. Just the virtual machine itself, not the actual installation of the operating system. So just so for editing convenience, basically what I'm going to do is stop recording and then I'm going to start recording again. Whoops. Oh, just put that over there. That's fine. And welcome back. As promised, I have done nothing. It has only been a few minutes. I don't know if you're paying attention to the time. I wouldn't, but you can probably download and or watch this at full resolution. So let's go ahead and start this virtual machine, and could not be started because the hypervisor is not running. Verify that the processor of the physical computer has a supported version of hardware-assisted virtualization, and verify that the hardware-assisted virtualization and hardware-assisted data execution protection are enabled in BIOS of the physical computer. This is an interesting problem. I will admit I didn't foresee this because I have never actually done virtualization. No, that's a lie. The first 2 or 3 whole years I had this machine, it was running VMware. Hyper-V settings, physical GPUs. Don't use enhanced session mode. Enhanced session mode, just for those who don't know, is essentially when you've got Windows 8 or newer, or 8.1 or 2012 or 2012 R2 or Windows 10 or now Server 2016, you can use enhanced session mode, which is basically RDP, and it still looks kind of janky, and you still don't have very good control over like the size of the virtual machine's window. Let's try just hitting start again. That's not going to work. I need to go and look at the machine. I might need to turn it off and go into BIOS and make sure that all my settings are correct. So what I'm going to do is just close out of that, I actually don't think... Nope, this really doesn't let me control anything. Just lets me see status. So we're going to close out of that, and I'm going to Control-Alt-Delete again, and we're going to shut down this system so that I can go check on the BIOS. Yay! While I do that, I'm just going to... Oh, I always forget that I can just come up here. I'm going to stop this, and I'll be back. Okay, well, we're back. The server has rebooted, and perhaps this is not going to be super surprising, but if we hit start, the same thing is happening. I vaguely suspect I'm going to have to redo everything, which is not going to take too long. It's just going to be a little annoying. The first, well, we'll see what happens. That said, I took the opportunity, because it takes a long time to shut down, to replace the disk. It's in here. This is looking at one of the virtual disks. We're just waiting for this to complete. There shouldn't really be any problem redoing the operating system while this is happening. But, we'll see. Well, while that's happening, before I redo everything, I'm just gonna kind of put my ISO folder into the D disk on here, just so that it's easier to do that. Oh, this is happening quickly. That's okay speed. So I'm just gonna go ahead and disconnect here and see what else I can find out. Okay, welcome back. This part of the recording is almost a whole week later. My apologies. Fixing the problem on the server ended up being just a little bit more complicated than I thought it would be. While that happened, I ended up running the benchmark that I wanted to. I presume it did well. I haven't looked at the results yet. Updating a whole bunch of firmware, which is what was causing the problem with our virtual machines. Wellsworth is the one we're working with, if you remember correctly. I didn't. I had to go look back at a previous video. And the RAID controller is now behaving properly. Everything should be better. So we can see we've got our hard disk, we've got WinBlue RTM, the CD drive. Let's go ahead and hit connect and then hit start. This screen is going to become very big. We're going to have to press a key there. Probably shouldn't have had to, but whatever. While that's happening, I'm going to change the taskbar a little bit because I just want to use small buttons. That makes everything fit. Never mind. We'll turn off the toolbar and that'll make everything fit. So we're pretty much going to rush through an installation of Windows Server 2012. We're going to hit install. Hypothetically, do I have the wrong media? Darn it. Let's see. I don't have it remapped. What it should hypothetically do, I need to investigate this, is just pass through the licensing on the host machine. I haven't got a serial number on the host machine. I'm using actual licensing, computer map network drive, tect SW. I must not have copied the right ISO file. let's see. Win8 RTM. Yeah, that should be it. I'm pretty sure that's what I used to make the demo. Okay, well, I'm gonna stop this right now and re-record and or just tack on a new segment because this is not insurmountable but not convenient. Okay, we're back. I've got the correct media now. All we need to do is hit install. This time it will ask what we want to install. I'm just going to tell it data center with a GUI and then hit next. We're going to accept this license. We're going to custom install even though we really don't need to. If we just hit next, yes, we want to install it onto that disk. It takes a few moments. I don't know what this is going to do in terms of like passing the license through. What's supposed to happen with Windows Server 2012 R2 Data Center, which is why I'm using it on the host machine, is that it essentially allows you to virtualize an unlimited number of Windows Server 2012 hosts on Hyper-V. That's the big difference between R2 Data Center and R2 Standard. Standard only allows 2. I think there's also like a socket limit thing. Of course, Microsoft is changing this in 2016 again to not be as favorable to people doing this on the scale I'm using it at. Fortunately, I still qualify for DreamSpark licensing, which is eventually what's going to end up on here. I just don't want to use that license yet until I know how to build everything up the correct way, which is why this is happening. What this is going to do is basically go through a Windows installation. You've seen that. It's not exciting until it comes back up. So I'm going to pause recording here and we're going to let it go and then bring it back up. Woo! Okay, welcome back. I was not listening to Rihanna. This is what happens after it finishes installing. We type a password in here for the built-in administrator account, and it asks us to Control-Alt-Delete to sign in. Oh, herf. That's because we're in Hyper-V connection. We can go to the action menu and tell it Control-Alt-Delete, or we can type in Control-Alt-End. Okay. Get our password in there, and it looks like it is rebooted to do this, but I didn't actually pay attention. I've seen this process so many times I should know for sure. Ha ha ha. The super duper nifty thing about this is going to be that it's going to ask us to configure some things, and I don't know how long it will take to come up. Let's see. Yeah, we want to do that thing. I like how it doesn't say that the license is valid. I think this is different type of media. I need to get my media in order before I start actually building out this stuff. Probably whatever I build today, I'm gonna wipe out and then bring back in. What would be interesting to see is if this virtual machine, if I happened to put it on a properly licensed data center hardware, if it would go, oh yes, I see. I need to look up the mechanism on that. I have a whole book about Windows Server 2012. I presume that will get me the knowledge I need because that had the same licensing arrangement. To look at all this stuff, we want to go to local server, and the first thing I always do is change the time zone because the time zone doesn't require that you reboot the machine. So I'm going to change the time zone. Yep, it is in fact, the best time, 6:03 p.m. That has caught up. We don't really need to do anything with the IP address right now. Let's see, and then I'm just going to rename this to Wellsworth. restart, close, restart now. It's super exciting. The next thing I'm going to do, which I won't show on video because it will take forever, is to run updates. I have another machine on which I've been running updates. I'll just show you that real quick. It's called Norambi. It's a virtual machine on one of my desktops. I was basically following this experiment in advance on another computer. Norambi has received a few rounds of updates, and that took it a few days. And I think there's still more to go before I can actually install SharePoint, which is the ultimate goal here. That may take a few moments, so I'm just gonna go back to Soder. Have you really already restarted? Action Control Delete. One of the nice things is that this machine has pretty fast storage. It's a RAID 6 of disks, split 300 gigs or so for the main operating system, 400, and another 10 terabytes for the virtual machines. That will be sufficient. Have you really not done anything, Norambi? I'll have to check out you on the physical machine. So, well, this is all coming up faster than I expected. We're going to go back to local server again. And, there's a few things, like there's a certificate error in OMSA. I bet if I updated Windows on here, that certificate error would be cleared, because now OMSA has a newer certificate than the the installed operating system does. Windows Update, this in a normal situation would be managed by my domain controller, but I sort of want it to reach out outside of the domain controller, so I'm going to update it before I join it to the domain. We're going to check for update, but let me choose whether or not to install and download them. Realistically, I'm going to install and download all of the updates, so it doesn't matter that much. We're gonna hit go here, and basically it's gonna idle for an hour checking for updates like this, and then I'm gonna hit OK, and it's gonna install them, and it's gonna reboot, and I'm gonna have to do the same thing over and over again. So that is where I'm gonna end this for now, because I want to get something up. Next time we'll talk about installing SharePoint.